Vexthor stood on the dimly lit command deck, his 4 strong arms moving across the holographic display with ease. He was a Velcrin, which is one of the most feared types of people in the galaxy. His dark green scales were tougher than the hull plating on most military ships, and everyone in 17 star systems knew about his reputation as a bounty hunter. The target never got away when Vexthor took a job. In all of his 30 years of work, he had never let anyone down. The contract that showed up on his screen that morning made him very interested. The bounty was huge, much more than he usually got for a simple retrieval mission. The target was a small cargo ship called the Wanderer, which was said to have stolen secret information from the Galactic Consortium. The money he was offered could let him retire in comfort for 5 years on any luxury world he wanted. Vexthor didn't stop because of the money, he stopped because of the target. People. Of course he had heard of them. Everyone in the galaxy knew. They were the new kids on the block, the weak little mammals who had just crawled out of their own solar system 200 years ago. They didn't have claws, natural armor, venom, or extra strength. Their bodies were soft and could be hurt easily. Most species thought they were at best interesting and at worst annoying. Hunting people should be like hunting kids. Still, he didn't like the huge bounty for some reason. Why pay so much for something so easy to hit? Vexthor pushed the thought out of his mind. Credits were credits, and he had never turned down good money because of a superstition. He followed the Wanderer through deep space for 3 days. The human ship was old and slow, and it left a trail of energy that even a beginner could follow. Vexthor found it hiding in a remote asteroid field on the edge of the Kilos sector, where it was trying to hide its signature among the floating rocks. He almost laughed. Did they really believe that such a simple trick would work on someone like him? Vexthor locked onto the Wanderer with cold precision and fired a series of electromagnetic pulses. The shots were perfectly aimed to stop the ship's engines without destroying it. To get the full bounty, he needed the crew to stay alive. The human ship went dark right away and floated aimlessly among the asteroids like a dead fish in water. Vexthor moved his ship next to the other one and opened the docking tube. He looked over his guns, a plasma rifle in one hand and a shock baton in the other. He didn't think he would need either of them. He had caught dangerous criminals before, armed rebels, and trained soldiers from a dozen different worlds. 3 unarmed people on a broken ship would give up as soon as they saw him. The airlock hissed open and Vexthor walked into the Wanderer. The inside was small and not well kept, with wires showing and patched up hull panels. He thought it was typical human engineering. They made everything cheap and not very long-lasting. He walked through the narrow halls with his rifle raised, and his steps were heavy on the metal floor. He found them in the main cargo hold. 3 people just like the contract said. The first was a man in his 50s who wore an old captain's jacket with faded insignia. His hair was gray and his face had a lot of deep wrinkles. The second one was younger, maybe in his 20s, and had oil-stained hands and a nervous look that made it clear he spent more time with machines than people. The third person was a young woman in a medical uniform. Her eyes were kind and her features were soft. They all had their hands up in the air. The captain stepped forward slowly, being careful not to look threatening. He said, "We give up," in Galactic Common, which was easy to understand even though his accent was strong. "We don't have any weapons. Please don't hurt us." Vexthor felt a flash of something that was almost like disappointment. Was this it? Was this the big problem? They looked scared and their little bodies were shaking a little. The young engineer was crying. The medic was breathing hard, clearly trying not to panic. "On your knees," Vexthor said in a deep voice that echoed in the cargo bay. The humans did what they were told right away and fell to the ground without a fight. He came up to them with his shock baton and tied their wrists with molecular restraints that got tighter if they fought back. They didn't get into a fight. They did not flee. They just knelt there looking scared and like they had lost. In less than 10 minutes, Vexthor had captured all 3 prisoners and locked them up on his own ship. He set a course for the consortium meeting point, which was 3 days away in neutral space. He leaned back in his command chair and smiled for the first time in a long time as his ship jumped to faster-than-light speed. The easiest money he had ever made. People said these people were weak and pathetic, and they were right. He would get his reward, go on a long vacation, and maybe even buy the pleasure yacht he had been thinking about. But as the stars sped by his window and the hours went by, Vexthor couldn't shake a small, nagging feeling in the back of his mind. This job didn't feel right to me. The reward was too big. It was too easy to catch. And when he looked at the captain through the security camera, the person didn't act like a prisoner who had lost. He was keeping an eye on things. Waiting. Like a predator in a cage, waiting for the right moment. The first day of the trip went by without a word. Vex Thor kept his prisoners in a holding cell and only checked on them twice to give them water and basic food packs. The people sat still, close together in the small space. Vex Thor learned that the young engineer's name was Ben and that he was looking at the floor. Rachel, the medic, sometimes whispered to the others, but she stopped talking whenever Vex Thor showed up. The captain, on the other hand, was different. Jack was his name, and unlike the others, he didn't look away when Vex Thor came into the room. He looked at the mercenary with steady, calculating eyes. They were no longer afraid. Instead, they had a quiet intelligence that made Vex Thor feel uneasy in a way he couldn't explain. Jack began to speak on the second day. Vex Thor didn't pay attention to him at first. There was always talking in prison. They begged, pleaded, offered bribes or threats, or told sad stories about their families. Vex Thor had heard it all before and it never changed his mind. A deal was a deal. But Jack didn't ask. He didn't beg. He just talked, with a calm, measured voice like he was talking about the weather. Jack said through the cell's communication panel, "You're making a mistake. I know you think this is just another job, but it's not." Vex Thor didn't say anything. He sat at his navigation console and looked over the route to the meeting place. He would be rich in 2 more days. Jack went on, "The consortium is lying to you. In 2 days these annoying people would be someone else's problem. They're not paying you to get us in. They want to see what happens when someone tries, and that's why they pay you." That made Vex Thor stop. He turned a little in his chair, and one of his 4 hands drummed on the armrest. "Shut up," he growled. "Or I'll turn off the air circulation in your cell." After that, Jack didn't say anything for a few hours. But he was talking again by the end of the day. This time his voice sounded different. More important. "Listen to me," Jack said. "Only for 5 minutes. If you still think I'm lying after that, I'll never talk to you again. I promise." Vex Thor thought about turning off the whole communication system. But his curiosity, which is a dangerous and often deadly trait, got the best of him. He had been hunting for 30 years and had learned to trust his gut. Even though every logical part of his brain told him to ignore it, something about this person's tone made him want to listen. "You have 3 minutes," Vex Thor said at last. "Talk." Jack took a big breath. "We didn't steal military secrets or plans for weapons. It was files about health. Documents for research. For the past 5 years, the consortium has been doing tests on human prisoners. They've been trying to figure out what sets us apart from other animals. How are they different?" Vex Thor asked, unable to stop himself. "We don't quit," Jack said simply. "No matter how bad things get, how much pain we're in, or how impossible the situation seems, people never give up. It's a part of who we are. Our ancestors lived through ice ages, plagues, wars, famines, and other disasters that would have killed off other species. We aren't the strongest. We aren't the fastest. We're not the smartest people. But we're the most stubborn things in the whole universe." Vex Thor made a noise like a pig. "That is not a weapon. That's dumb. Is it?" Jack leaned closer to the cell bars, his face lined with worry. "The consortium doesn't agree. They've been trying to figure out what makes us tick. They want to make soldiers who will never give up, never back down, and never stop fighting. But they can't figure it out because it's not in their genes. It's part of the culture. It's in your head. That's who we are." "And why did you steal this information?" "Why?" Vex Thor asked. "Because people should know what is being done to them," Jack said. "The consortium has been taking people from their homes and testing them until they die. Because it had to be stopped." Vex Thor turned his back. "A good story. Very moving. But it doesn't change anything. You are criminals. You took secret information. The reasons don't matter." "You're right," Jack said softly. "The reasons don't matter to you. But the consortium's plan does matter. Think about it. Why would they hire you, the best mercenary in the galaxy, to catch 3 unarmed people on a cargo ship that was broken down? You could have sent a new person to do this. Why should I pay you so much for something so simple?" Vex Thor had been thinking about that question since he signed the contract. He had pushed it away, but now it came rushing back. Jack was correct. The reward didn't make any sense. Unless something else was going on. Jack said, "They're testing you," in a voice that was barely above a whisper. "They want to see what happens when the best hunter in the galaxy catches humans and tries to turn them in. They want to know how we will respond. How we fight. How we get away. That's what we do, Vex Thor. We get away. We live. Always." "You are locked in a cell on my ship in the middle of deep space with molecular restraints," Vex Thor said flatly. "You can't get away." Jack smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. That smile said they knew something you didn't. That's what they all believe. Every species in the galaxy thinks the same thing when they catch humans. We seem weak. We seem to be helpless. When everyone stops paying attention and thinks they've won, that's when we attack. Vexthor felt a chill run down his spine, which he hadn't felt in a long time. He watched Jack on the security camera. The human captain was no longer begging. He wasn't even trying to get Vexthor to let them go. He was just stating facts, like when you tell someone about a dangerous animal in the woods. "I'm giving you fair warning," Jack said, looking straight into the camera. "Turn this ship around. Bring us back to human space. Let us go. We'll forget all about this if you do that. But if you take us to the consortium and give us to them, you'll see exactly why they want to study us. And I promise you, Mercenary, you won't like what you learn." "Is that a threat?" Vexthor asked. "No," Jack said. "It's a promise. When we are trapped, have no way out, and are about to die, we don't just fight. We are the winners. Every time. No matter what it costs. We fought a lot of battles in the past where we were outnumbered, outgunned, and out of options. And we won every one of them. Not because we got lucky. Not because the universe wanted us to. But we wouldn't give up." Vexthor looked at the screen for a long time. He then turned off the communication panel and went back to his navigation console. What? A desperate man tells desperate lies. That was all it was. He had one more day to meet up with them. This would all be over in one more day. Vexthor felt the first stirrings of doubt deep down, in a place he didn't often talk about. On the third day, Vexthor's ship stopped traveling faster than light at the agreed-upon meeting point. There was nothing in the sector but a small monitoring station floating in the dark. Vexthor opened a line of communication and sent his ID codes, expecting the usual bureaucratic response from consortium officials. Instead, his sensors lit up like a display at a festival. 3 big warships appeared out of nowhere around him, their weapons already charged and aimed at him. Vexthor's hands moved automatically over his controls, but he was surrounded. There was no way out. As targeting lasers painted his hull from all sides, his ship's computer screamed warnings. A cold voice said over the radio, "This is Consortium Battle Group 7. Shut down your engines and get ready to be boarded. If you fight back, you will be destroyed right away." Vexthor's thoughts were racing. This was not right. Not at all right. He was supposed to give the prisoners to someone else, get paid and leave. What were military ships doing here? Why were they acting like he was a threat? Jack's words came rushing back like ice water down his back. "They never meant to pay you. They're using you to test something." "There has been a mistake," Vexthor said quickly. "I have the prisoners as promised. 3 people from the ship Wanderer. I'm here to finish the delivery." The voice said, "We know what you have. Turn off your systems right now." Vexthor waited too long to make a move. The lead warship fired a warning shot that hit his port engine, which caused an explosion that shook the whole ship. As systems started to fail, alarms went off all over the ship. They weren't here to give him money. They were here to take the people and kill the witness. He hit the comm panel with his fist. "I am a registered bounty hunter working for Consortium Contract 7749. You can't." Another blast hit his ship, this time taking out his main shields. Vexthor knew with horrible clarity that he was going to die. The Consortium was going to blow up his ship, take the people off of it, and no one would ever know what happened to the famous Velcrin Mercenary. Another hunter who went missing in deep space. His ship shook when the boarding clamps were put on the hull. They were getting on board. Vexthor picked up his plasma rifle with both hands and his shock batons with the other 2. He would take as many of them with him as he could if he was going to die. That was how the Velcrin did things. But then something happened that Vexthor would never forget. He heard a loud crack from the holding cell area through the noise, the alarms, and the smoke that filled the hallways. Then one more. Then there was the unique hiss of a door opening. Vexthor turned around with his weapons raised just in time to see the 3 people come out of the cell. But these prisoners were not the same scared, defeated ones he had locked up 3 days ago. Jack walked in front, his wrists free, and the broken molecular restraints were on the floor behind him. His hands were covered in blood, which was his own blood that was dripping from deep cuts on his wrists. "How did you?" Vexthor began, but Jack stopped him. Jack said in a calm voice as if he were teaching a class, "Molecular bonds react to standard protein structures. Most species have a different pH level in their blood than humans do. A little bit acidic. For 2 days I've been rubbing the restraints against the cuts on my wrists. The acidity breaks down the bonds between molecules. It works, but it takes time." Vexthor's scanners had never found it. He had checked the restraints twice a day and they had always looked fine. But the people had been planning their escape the whole time, slowly and carefully, without showing any signs of what they were doing. Another blast hit the hull and the ship shook again. Soldiers from the consortium were cutting through the door to the airlock. They had about 60 seconds before the boarding party came in. Ben, the young engineer, was already on the move. He ran past Vexthor and into the ship's storage bay, where he grabbed tools and spare parts with hands that moved at an impossible speed. Vexthor was amazed to see the humans start to put together something out of broken equipment. Ben made a working energy weapon out of a broken power cell, some wiring and a piece of hull plating in less than 30 seconds. It was rough and ugly, but when he tested it against the wall, it burned a hole all the way through. "Not bad for spare parts," Ben said as he checked the charge. His hands were steady. He didn't move out of fear, he moved with purpose. Rachel, the medic who had seemed so nice and gentle, walked calmly to Vexthor's medical station. She checked the settings on the surgical laser, which is the kind used for very precise operations. Her face, which had been soft, had changed. Her eyes were hard and calculating now. She stood near the airlock, holding the laser with professional confidence. "You have body armor?" she said to Vexthor. "We don't. Stay behind cover and shoot at them. We'll take care of the rest." "You are civilians," Vexthor said, still trying to figure out what was going on. "You haven't been trained to fight. You can't." The airlock blew up inside. Four soldiers from the consortium in full assault armor rushed in, weapons drawn. They were Krell warriors who were heavily armed and trained to fight on ships. Each one was worth 10 regular soldiers. Rachel moved before Vexthor could even lift his gun. She came out from behind cover, where she was completely exposed, and fired the surgical laser in precise, controlled bursts. The first soldier fell when the laser cut through the weak spot in his neck seal. The second person tried to point his gun at her, but she was already moving, and her small body ducked out of the way. She shot again, this time hitting the soldier's knee joint and knocking him out right away. She walked up calmly and shot him a third time through the visor of his helmet as he fell. Vexthor stood still, not using his weapons. He had seen trained killers work before. He had fought with special forces that were the best of the best. But this was not the same. Rachel was not in the army. She was a nurse. But she killed those two warriors with the same cold efficiency as someone who had done it 1,000 times before. Don't think twice. No mercy. Just figured out violence. Ben shot his makeshift weapon at the third soldier. The energy blast hit the warrior's chest plate and overloaded the systems in his armor. The Krell fell and smoke came out of his suit. Jack was right there. The human captain, who was not armed or wearing armor, grabbed the confused soldier and twisted his helmet with his bare hands until the seal broke. The soldier fell to the ground, gasping for air in the ship's atmosphere, which his species couldn't breathe. The fourth soldier tried to go back through the airlock when he saw that his whole squad had been killed in less than 10 seconds. Vexthor finally moved and shot the warrior in the back with his plasma rifle. The soldier fell and the ship was quiet again. Vexthor looked at the three people who were standing in the middle of the bodies of trained consortium soldiers. Jack was breathing hard and still holding the dead warrior's helmet with his bloody hands. Ben was already taking apart the weapons of the dead soldiers. His engineer's mind was making a list of the parts he could use. Rachel stood perfectly still, the surgical laser still in her hand, and her eyes were on the airlock looking for more threats. These were not the weak, delicate animals he had caught. These people were not victims. These people lived through it. These were hunters. And for the first time in his long and violent career, Vexthor was really scared. "Do you still think we're weak?" Jack asked, looking Vexthor in the eye. The mercenary didn't have an answer. The ship's systems were breaking down very quickly. The command console for Vexthor showed that both engines were badly damaged, life support was only at 40%, and the shields were completely gone. The three consortium warships outside were moving around to get ready for another attack. They had about 2 minutes before the next wave of fire would completely destroy his ship. Jack walked up to the command deck, stepping over wires and junk that were sparking. His clothes were ripped and stained with blood, but his eyes were clear and focused. Jack's voice cut through the noise as he looked at the tactical display showing the enemy ships all around them and then at Vexthor. "You have two choices," he said. "You can try to fight them by yourself and die in the next minute. You can also work with us and maybe, just maybe, we'll all make it through this." Vexthor's pride made him want to turn down the offer right away. He was a famous hunter and a warrior who had fought in many battles and lived. It went against everything he was to take orders from a person or prey. But his instincts for staying alive, which he had learned from 30 years of dangerous work, told him something else. In just a few seconds, these people had killed 4 elite soldiers. They had gotten away from restraints that were meant to be impossible to break. And most importantly, they didn't seem scared. They looked like they were going to do it. What is your plan? What weapons and systems still work on this ship? Jack asked as he moved to stand next to the console. Vexthor brought up the report on the damage. Port maneuvering thrusters are working. The plasma cannon on the starboard side is only partially powered. Emergency batteries can help us make 1 or 2 more jumps to faster than light speed, but the navigation system is broken. We can't plot exact coordinates. Jack looked at the display and moved his fingers over the enemy ship's positions. What about the field of asteroids we passed an hour ago? How far back is it? About 20,000 kilometers, Vexthor said. But going into an asteroid field with broken engines would be like killing yourself. We can't move around correctly. Jack said, perfect, and he was smiling. Smiling for real. That's exactly what we need. Ben had joined them now, carrying a lot of weapons and gear that he had taken from dead consortium soldiers. I can move power from life support to give the thrusters a 30-second boost. We'll be breathing thin air for a while, but it might give us enough speed to get to the field. Do it, Jack said right away. Rachel was at the medical station getting emergency supplies ready. We need to make sure everything is safe if we're going into an asteroid field without shields. I'm closing off the medical bay and using emergency foam to strengthen the hull breaches. It won't last long, but it might keep us alive. Vexthor watched in awe as they worked. They moved like a well-trained army, with everyone knowing exactly what to do without being told. But they weren't in the army. They were civilians who worked on a cargo ship. But they worked together and with a sense of purpose that most professional soldiers never did. I don't understand, Vexthor said. You are not soldiers. How do you know how to do all of this? Jack looked up from the computer. You want to know what sets people apart? I'll tell you. Every type of life in the galaxy evolved to do a certain job. You Velcrans turned into armored hunters. The Krell got stronger. The Zenti got faster. But what about people? We changed to stay alive. He pointed at the tactical display. For millions of years, our planet tried to kill us. Ice ages, droughts, diseases, natural disasters, and predators that are bigger and stronger than us. We didn't have any claws, armor, or poison. We were weak, slow, and fragile. By all logical standards, we should have died out. Ben was connecting wires at the engine control panel, and his hands moved quickly and easily. But we didn't die. We got smarter. We changed. We built tools. We learned that if we couldn't beat something with strength, we could beat it with brains. Rachel said, "We're pursuit predators," without looking up from her work. Our ancestors hunted by chasing animals until they fell over from exhaustion. We can run longer than almost any other animal on Earth. We can live through injuries that would kill most animals. If we have to, we can go days without food or water. We're made to last. The hull of the ship shook when another blast hit it. All of the consoles had flashing warning lights. One of the consortium ships was getting closer and getting ready to fire. 30 seconds until they're in the best firing range, Vexthor said. Then we go now, Jack said. Ben, give us that extra thrust. Rachel, lock yourself in. Vexthor, when I say so, turn off all power except for emergency life support and thrusters. Make them think we're stuck. Vexthor said, that will leave us completely open to attack. Exactly, Jack said. They'll get close to make sure they kill. That's when we take off. It was crazy. It broke every rule of fighting in space. But when Vexthor looked at Jack's face, he saw something he knew from looking in the mirror after getting through impossible situations. It was the look of someone who had put everything on the line for a desperate plan and was sure, without a doubt, that it would work. Do it, Vexthor said. He turned off the power. The ship was dark except for the emergency lights. Outside, the ships of the consortium slowed down as their sensors scanned the ship that looked like it was broken. They were careful, which gave them a few extra seconds. Now, Jack whispered. Ben hit the emergency power release hard with his hand. The ship suddenly sped up and lurched forward, passing the consortium ships that were surprised. There was gunfire behind them, but they were already moving too quickly. The ship that was damaged screamed in protest, metal groaned, and systems overloaded, but it stayed together. 3 warships were chasing them as they sped toward the asteroid field. As they entered the thick field of spinning rocks and debris, Vexthor's hands gripped the controls. Jack yelled, "Hard right," as he read the sensors. This was going to be a nightmare to get through. Right there between those 2 big asteroids. Vexthor pulled on the controls. The ship barely fit through the opening and it scraped against one of the rocks. The consortium ships had to slow down because they were bigger and harder to steer. They are falling back, Vexthor said. They won't follow us into the thickest part of the field. Yes, they will, Jack said with a frown. Because we are going to make them mad. Ben had been doing something in the corner. He now held up a modified weapon made from parts of Vexthor's own systems and consortium equipment. I have a really bad idea that might work. It is a bomb that sends out an electromagnetic pulse. One shot and it's dead. From here, can you hit the engines of their lead ship? Probably not, Ben said. Jack asked. But I can get close enough to make them think twice about coming after us. He shot. The improvised weapon fired a crackling ball of energy that flew through the asteroid field and exploded close to the lead consortium ship. It didn't destroy the ship, but it did take out their front shields. And most importantly, it made them angry. All three warships went deeper into the asteroid field and fired wildly. They were losing their tactical discipline and letting their anger get the best of them. That's what Jack wanted, Rachel said, pointing to the tactical display. She had been looking at the patterns of asteroids. That group of 3 big rocks up ahead is spinning together. We can use their gravity to slingshot around them if we time it right. That move will create 8 times the normal gravity, Vexthor said. It will crush you. That kind of force is too much for people to handle. Look at us, Jack said. They hit the spinning asteroid's gravitational field at full speed. Vexthor's body was made to handle extreme conditions, so the crushing force didn't bother him. But the people should have been turned into pulp. Instead, they clenched their teeth and pressed their bodies flat against what they were holding. Their eyes' blood vessels burst. The pressure made their faces turn purple. But they stayed awake. They lived because they were too stubborn to die. The ship made a sharp turn around the asteroids, coming out behind the consortium ships that were chasing it. The warships couldn't keep up because they weren't built for such extreme moves. Still, 2 of them tried. One hit an asteroid and started spinning out of control. The other one went too far and hit a bigger rock where its shields failed. The command ship, the third ship, was still working, but it was now alone and facing the wrong way. Vexthor's combat instincts took over, and he fired his broken plasma cannon right at their exposed engines. The blast wasn't very strong and his weapon didn't work very well, but it was enough. The engines of the consortium ship blew up in a bright flash, leaving it drifting and unable to move. They had done it. 3 civilians and 1 bounty hunter had just beaten 3 military warships with nothing but a half-destroyed ship, spare parts, and tactics that were so crazy that they should have killed everyone involved. Vexthor looked at the people. The strong gravitational forces made Jack cough up blood. Ben's hands were shaking so much that he could barely hold his tools. It looked like Rachel was going to pass out. But they were happy. Really smiling. Do you still think we're weak? Jack asked again, wiping blood from his lips. Vexthor had an answer this time. No. I believe you are the most frightening type of person I have ever met. That day in the asteroid field was 6 months ago. It had been 6 months since 3 humans who wouldn't stay captured had turned Vexthor's world upside down. He was sitting in a dark corner of the Outer Reach, a well-known spaceport bar on the edge of civilized space where bounty hunters, smugglers and mercenaries went to look for work and tell stories. There were a lot of people at the bar tonight. People from all over the galaxy filled the tables, speaking dozens of languages, making deals and sharing information. Vexthor stayed alone, nursing a drink he had barely touched. He put his 4 arms on the scarred table in front of him and watched the crowd with the caution of someone who had seen too much. He was not the same person anymore. Other hunters who knew him right away noticed it. Vexthor, the famous bounty hunter who had never failed a contract and had tracked the most dangerous criminals across the stars, was now turning down jobs. He specifically said no to any job that involved people. Word spread quickly through the networks of mercenaries. Some people thought he had gotten weak. People whispered that something had happened to him that had made the famous hunter lose his nerve. They weren't completely wrong. A young Draxian bounty hunter walked up to his table with a swagger and a look of confidence in his eyes. The Draxian were a proud, reptilian, and strong race that was known for their aggressive hunting style. This one was new to the job, maybe only a few years in, and still wanted to make a name for himself. You are Vexthor, the young hunter said, not asking but stating. The famous tracker. I have heard stories about you since I was a baby. Vexthor looked up for a second, then went back to looking at his drink. The stories are probably not true. The Draxian, who wasn't invited, slid into the seat across from Vexthor and said, I don't think so. I believe you actually hunted the Ravagers of Keltos. I really think you caught the Pirate King of the Outer Rim. I believe everything you say. What do you want? Vexthor asked, his voice tired. The young hunter took a data pad out of his pocket and put it on the table. I need help. I have been given a contract. Good cash. A lot of money. But I've heard that you don't want these jobs anymore and I want to know why. Vexthor looked at the data pad. He knew what it would say even though he didn't read it. He had looked at dozens of contracts like this in the past few months. The description of the target was always the same. Human body. Crew of people. Property or information that was stolen. Big reward. He pushed the pad back without looking at the details. Refuse it, Vexthor said simply. But the payment is, I don't care about the payment. Don't accept it. The Draxian's eyes narrowed. Is it true then? Does the great Vexthor fear people? He said humans with disgust like you would talk about bugs or rats. Vexthor's eyes flashed with something dangerous. He leaned forward, putting all four of his hands flat on the table. Scared? Yes, I'm scared. And if you were smart you would be too. The young hunter laughed, but it was a nervous laugh. They're weak. Everyone knows this. They don't have any natural weapons, armor, or special powers. They are animals that are prey and are pretending to be space travelers. Vexthor said softly, that's what I thought. I thought the same thing. He drank for a long time before putting the glass down with a loud thud. I signed a contract just like yours 6 months ago. I thought it was easy money. 3 people on a cargo ship. My name is Velcrin. My armor can stand up to plasma fire. I have 4 arms and each one can bend steel. I've hunted across 1,000 worlds and killed things that would scare you to death. 3 unarmed people should have been nothing. As Vexthor spoke, the noise from the bar seemed to fade. Hunters at tables nearby had stopped talking and were now paying attention. Vexthor had never told this story in public before. I caught them easily, he said next. They gave up without putting up a fight. I put them in. They got away, Vexthor said. With their own blood. One of them, the captain, had cut his wrists and used the acid in human blood to slowly break down the bonds between molecules. He was in pain and bleeding for 2 days while I thought he was quietly sitting in his cell. 2 days of hiding what he was doing from my sensors and my checks. I had never seen that kind of patience or pain tolerance before. He raised one of his hands and the young hunter saw the faint scars on it. When the consortium turned on me and sent their warships to kill me and take the humans, those 3 prisoners turned into something else. The young engineer made weapons out of spare parts on my ship. Weapons that work in less than a minute. The woman, who was a medic, used a medical laser to kill 2 trained consortium soldiers. She didn't think twice. She didn't stop moving. She killed them like she had done it 1,000 times before. The Draxian was leaning forward and not paying attention to his drink. But you got away. You survived. Because they saved me, Vexthor said, and he sounded ashamed. The prey saved the hunter. We fought our way out together and that day I learned something. People are not weak. Most species don't know it yet, but they are the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. He picked up the data pad and looked at the information he had been gathering for months. Do you know the history of people? For millions of years, their planet tried to kill them. Ice ages that would have killed off any other species. Predators that were stronger, faster, and bigger. Diseases that took the lives of billions. And they made it through it all. Not by being tough, but by not giving up. Vexthor brought up a picture of Earth, the home planet of humans. They say something on their planet. People say, never give up, when they are in a situation that seems impossible. It sounds easy, like something a child would say. But that's their whole way of thinking. It is part of who they are, their culture and their history. People don't know how to give up. They don't have it. They're still just one species, the young hunter said, but his voice didn't sound as sure this time. One species that took over their whole planet, Vexthor said in response. Not the most powerful species on their planet. Not the quickest or the most protected. But they hunted everything else until it gave up or died out. Do you know what they did? They ran. 4 hours and sometimes days, they chased their prey until it fell over from exhaustion. After that, they killed it. They are predators that chase after things. They never stop. They never get tired. They just keep coming. He leaned back and stared off into space, lost in thought. In that asteroid field, we did a maneuver that made the gravity 8 times stronger than normal. It should have killed them. Their bodies are weak and not made to handle that kind of force. But they made it through with their willpower. I saw their blood vessels pop. I saw them turn purple because of the pressure. And they stayed awake. They kept working. Because giving up would mean death and people don't accept death. The bar was now completely quiet. Everyone, even the bartender, had stopped working to listen. Vexthor's voice echoed through the room, and every hunter there knew how serious what he was saying was. Vexthor went on, "Once we got away, I let them go. Jack, the captain, shook my hand before he left. He looked me in the eye and said, 'Thanks for paying attention to the warning.' That's when I got it. He had told me from the start. He had told me what would happen. But I didn't listen because I thought I was the hunter and he was the prey." He handed the data pad back to the young Draxian. "The consortium wanted to learn more about people. They wanted to find out what makes them dangerous so they could use it as a weapon. But you can't turn stubbornness into a weapon. You can't put the refusal to die in a bottle. It is not in the genes. It is not real. It's something deeper, something in their culture and minds." The young hunter said slowly, "So you want me to refuse the contract?" "I am telling you that if you take that contract, one of two things will happen," Vexthor said. "You will either be able to catch the humans, and the person who hired you will betray you like the consortium betrayed me. Or the people will get away and you'll learn the same lesson I did. No matter what, you'll wish you had paid attention to this warning." He stood up, and his big body cast a shadow over the table. "I have hunted on 1,000 different worlds. I have followed criminals through radioactive wastelands and frozen moons. I fought things that would make you scream just to look at them. But I won't ever hunt people again. Not for any amount of cash. Not for any reason." The young Draxian looked at his data pad for a long time before slowly pushing it away. "I will not sign the contract." "Good," Vexthor said. He began to walk away, but then he stopped and turned around. "Tell the young hunters about it. Let them know what I said. Because people are now spreading across the galaxy, more hunters will be able to sign these contracts. They have to know." The Draxian asked, "What should I say?" Vexthor's voice got lower, but everyone in the bar could still hear him. "Tell them that humans are the only prey that chose to become predators. Tell them that people don't have claws, armor, or venom, but they do have something much worse. They will never ever give up. Tell them that I, Vexthor, the famous hunter, am giving them a warning like Jack did." He put one heavy hand on the table and looked around the room, making eye contact with every hunter there. "Don't ever hunt people. That is my warning. I give that to you. Don't make the same mistake I did." He then left the bar and walked into the neon-lit streets of the spaceport. People at the bar started talking behind him. Hunters were arguing and talking about what they had heard. Some people would listen to the warning. Some people would ignore it and learn the hard way. But the story had begun. Hunters would tell the story of Vexthor and his warning in bars, safe houses, and mercenary guilds all over the galaxy. And bit by bit, one truth would spread through the criminal underworld of 1,000 worlds. Don't ever hunt people.